Next item is the ICE resolution, rescinding the prior ICE resolution. Probably don't need to give a lot of background on this. In 2009, there was a resolution passed as it related to the local law enforcement and ICE. Some of us disagreed with that resolution, thought it was a little too broad, thought it said it spoke for the entire county, when in fact it didn't. So I proposed a new resolution. Had a lot of wherefores and therefores like resolutions do, and I got a lot of feedback on that with some folks that didn't really agree with some of those comments. So we amended that. The new resolution does what the first one I presented did without all of the wording, and it's a compromise. We don't need a new resolution. What we were really trying to do with the one I proposed back in April was to just rescind the January 5th, 2009 ICE resolution. So the new resolution simply says, it's probably the shortest commissioner resolution I've seen, be it resolved that the Chatham County Board of Commissioners rescinds the resolution on the Federal Immigration and Customs Enforcement ICE program approved on January 5th, 2009, and then adopted this 6th day of June 2011. That is the resolution. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
Make a motion to adopt the resolution.
Is there a second?
A second.
Is there discussion?
I would like to make a couple of points. When the original resolution was passed, the backup information to it talks about how we all feel that immigration reform is an important priority. We just didn't think that the ICE 287G program was the vehicle to take the issue of immigration. From all the reading that I've done, and this is a very complicated issue. I think we sometimes tend to oversimplify it, but the 287G program does not work. It does make communities less safe because it makes it more difficult to solve crimes. Because most law enforcement will tell you that the way crimes are solved is community interaction, people talking to the folks in the community. And if they're in fear of law enforcement, they're not going to talk. Additionally, the 287G is expensive to administer. One of the speakers I believe at our last meeting referred us to a report from 2010 done by the Inspector General, where it talks about, it has 33 recommendations to improve the program. But one of them really outlines that this isn't, that the federal government is pushing down their responsibilities to local law enforcement agencies, and guess who picks up the cost? The local law enforcement agencies. Many people may say, well, it's worth the cost if it's going to take care of, getting all these dangerous people out of our community. Well, Mr. Graybill provided us some statistics, and they were also in this document from March 2010 that says, guess what? ICE isn't picking up these hardcore criminals. It's really getting the people who are for very petty crimes. It's not effective in ridding your community of felons. All the evidence tells us that the ICE program causes racial profiling. And that really does sadden me. I'm sure it saddens all of us here. And again, that's why we need comprehensive reform. The original resolution is a clear statement to the federal government that we're telling you, look, feds, we're not going to do your job. You do your job, and you pay to do your job. And I think by passing this resolution, that's what we told the federal government. Today we got an email that the state of Massachusetts has said that about secure communities, that this program has caused all sorts of problems. It's not effective. It is not addressing immigration, so we want no part of it. So I applaud the governor for the state of Massachusetts because he sent the message to the federal government that we all should be sending to them, is that we want comprehensive reform. So with that, we heard from many people about all the issues dealing with ICE, the 287G. I do continue to support the original resolution, and so I will be voting against this.
Yes.
Okay, just couple of quick points. I encourage you all to read the original resolution because it was not a resolution on 287G. There were several paragraphs that talked about 287G, but a resolution, the part that counts, is the part that says be it resolved. And it was be it resolved that that current, or the board that sitting at that time, stood in strong opposition to local law enforcement, working with state and federal law enforcement, in any capacity where you sign a memorandum of agreement. It was not 287G. Had it said just 287G, we'd be having a different discussion. It then went on to say that the resolution was passed on behalf of all the residents in Chatham County. A resolution is an opinion of the board, not passed, just as what we're going to do today. It's our opinion. It's not a reflection necessarily of all the residents of the county. So it wasn't a 287G program resolution. Maybe it was intended to be, but that's certainly not what it said. We hear a lot about secure communities, whether you're for or against. The original resolution doesn't affect secure communities, nor does this one. Secure communities does not require a memorandum of agreement. So whether that's in place or not in place has no impact whatsoever on secure communities. Furthermore, we can't pick and choose which laws we want our law enforcement to. And I think that's all I have.
I'd like to add something. Actually, I spoke with Walter and with Brian at different times in the past because I don't want to rescind the resolution we did in 2009. I voted to approve it, and I haven't changed my feelings any. But after seeing what was proposed, I said, can you consider if we take one off and put a stop sign and not have one? We can't tell the sheriff what to do to begin with, and all the law enforcement people are sworn, including the sheriff and including everybody up here, to uphold the law. So I consider this not a reflection on any sector of citizens, but a compromise that this county can use. It doesn't do anything for law enforcement. We can't tell him anything. Yes, we control his budget, but we could not afford to pay what he would have to do out of your tax dollars or our tax dollars if we set the sheriff out on some big chase. So I appreciate the board majority being willing to compromise and drop what they were proposing. I certainly don't want something stronger in the opposite direction of what we passed in 2009. So I will be supporting this compromise.
Thank you.
Basically, from my standpoint and where I really stand on all of this is that there is no doubt that we badly need some sort of immigration reform. We also need tax reform. But I don't think that we can all get away from, paying our taxes just because we don't agree that it's not fair. And it is an emotional issue because we're talking about human beings and human life. And so when you start talking about that and you talk about those types of humanity issues, then it does become more of an emotional issue. But one of the things that I keep thinking about and this kind of resonates in my head is that the oath of office that we took to uphold the law. And we swore, to uphold the law, the Constitution of North Carolina and the Constitution of the United States, to abide by the laws. And whether I like them or not, I'm bound because I swore to say that I would uphold them. And so I cannot, and really, and I'll be conscious sit up here and say that I'm going to take the vote to say that I'm not going to uphold the law. I would like to see things change, but basically, if they're going to have to come from a higher power than Chatham County to really see any reform. Because basically, the law enforcement are going to do what they do. And whether we realize it or not, because of things that they do electronically, it's going to detect people who are here illegally anyway. And I trust, again, I trust the deputies, I trust the sheriff's department, public safeties, that they're not out there profiling people. And they're not out there rounding people up and chasing them down in the streets to, to bring them in. I don't think I've seen that, and I've talked to Webster about that and what they've done differently from before. And, he seems, he can reassure me that, no, we're not doing that. We don't have the manpower to do that, to get out there and do that. So, again, I think from my standpoint, I think it's an issue that I took an oath to basically to support the laws of the land, whether I like them or not, and I have to stay with that.
Let me just quickly do the racial profiling comment. If in fact our sheriff's department is racial profiling, which they are not, and if there's any evidence of that, that's a completely different topic to discuss, as opposed to this resolution. So just, I mean, that's a separate topic completely. If someone has evidence of that, we'd love to see it.
Yeah.
And so would the sheriff, by the way,
Yeah.
because the sheriff does not encourage
Yeah,
that.
he's pretty.
I do want to make the point, though, that participation in the 287G program is not a requirement of local law enforcement. It's an optional program. So your argument that this is, that we're upholding the law, I mean, we don't, I think one of our speakers made the comment that, well, people don't pay their taxes. We're not out there collecting their for IRS.
Yes.
And that's a federal law. So we're not in the business of enforcing federal laws. That it's a federal government's responsibility, not local government.
And just to my point, as I said, we're not doing it.
Again,
We're not
it's-
out there, we're not out there.
But I just
It's
wanted
not
to
a
comment about that.
287G, it wasn't a 287G resolution. It said, cooperation with state and federal. If it was 287G again, it'd be a different topic. We need to get it down to the point.
Let's not make it what it is.
Right. So moved, seconded, discussed at length. All in, say that again? Oh, yeah, I think it's also important to point out that someone handed me these today. There's probably 200, 250 names on a petition to say to rescind the 2009 resolution. So it's not all one-sided. I would say that the Farm Bureau has officially said that they support rescinding the 2009 resolution. So now we discuss it all in favor of the motion that has been made and seconded to rescind the 2009 resolution, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
The 2009 resolution is rescinded.
Whoa!